got a cool fishing experience to share with you guys this week. A little bit different target this week, but I hope those of you that watch this content will enjoy it. I think it turned out pretty cool. Went down to Lake Powell with my family, and we got into some striper boils. So stripers were planted in Lake Powell in 1974. I'll give you a little bit of the history. When they originally decided to plant stripers, the Utah Division of Wildlife Resources thought that the stripers would be unable to reproduce, that there was nowhere in Lake Powell where the fish could spawn. They were wrong, and stripers have flourished and have more or less taken over Lake Powell. Now, they're still largemouth, and it's a great largemouth fishery. It's a great smallmouth fishery. We caught, I think, 3 largemouth that were in the 3 to 5 pound range. I don't have footage of those. And then maybe I myself probably caught 50 or 60 smallmouth. And, you know, we were really there not to fish. We were there to enjoy the beautiful scenery, to water ski, family trip, and then, just on the side, we're fishing. So Lake Powell is one of the best fisheries in the state of Utah. The funnest part about Lake Powell, in my opinion, is the stripers and going out and fishing striper boils. So what a striper boil is, and if you've been watching this, you've seen what actually kind of looks like boils, is when a group of stripers school up around bait fish, shad, and there are 2 kinds of shad in Lake Powell the stripers feed on. And they come to the surface and they chase these around, and it is a riot. Now, setting aside the fact that Lake Powell is one of the most beautiful places on the planet, I'm amazed sometimes when I talk to people in Utah that have never been to Lake Powell. It's not that far from where most of the population of Utah is, along the Wasatch Front, and it is spectacular. It's like you crossed all the southern Utah national parks like Bryce Canyon and Arches and all these things with a lake. You can literally take your boat down these canyons that are like being able to hike through Arches and Bryces. So Lake Powell's incredible. And it actually has turned into an incredible fishery, kind of by accident, but the stripers at Lake Powell are phenomenal. So anyway, I'll kind of hop into what's actually going on here. Like I said, I hope you guys think it's cool footage. Not a lot of real big stripers. I've never caught anything more than, a couple of pounds on the surface. They do get bigger, but I go down once a year. And it was about 5 years ago that my brother turned me on to stripers. Before that, I never fished for them. We'd go down to Lake Powell and we would, do the water ski thing. And I said, I've been going down there my entire life. Not every year, but, every couple of years. And recently, every year. And I probably will continue to go down there every year for the rest of my life, for at least a week. So these stripers, they start to boil usually June. And they will boil sometimes all the way into October. Now, you can catch them all year long, but for me, the top water action is what I go down for. So I'm not a striper expert. I'm not going to pretend to be a striper expert. I'm sure there's people out there that know a heck of a lot more about striper fishing than me. What I am is a pretty good fly fisherman, and I love to catch fish. So I'll kind of tell you my approach to how I tackle Lake Powell and tackle striper boils. Now, we do go out and chase them in our ski boats. So you can do it that way if you've got a boat like that. The motors do tend to scare the bait fish. You don't want to go straight at the striper boils. You go to the side of them, you shut the motor off, and you kind of coast into them and cast in. The easy thing to do if you got kids, wives, or yourself, you don't want to try to do it with a fly because it is a lot harder with a fly, is to throw jigs. We just use little white jigs and we can kill them. In fact, I tell people a story that it was probably 5 years ago. I took my boy out fishing one evening and we ran into just crazy boils. I mean, I've never seen it like that before or since. But he caught at 8 years old, maybe 9 years old, cast out, reeled, hooked, reeled into the boat. I helped him, finish landing him and releasing him. 50 fish in one afternoon. Crazy. And not like little fish. I mean, some of them are small, you might catch the occasional 12 to 14 incher, but most of them are 20 inches plus. So, I mean, these are sizable fish that you're catching. So it can be fantastic like that. And if you use jigs and stuff like that, that's great. But the way I approach it, go over my setup first. I typically use my 7 weight, sometimes go with my 6 weight. Either one's okay. Realistically, I mean, the stripers do give a pretty good fight, but I mean, the main reason you want a little bit heavier rod is to be able to cast the flies. Now, what I use, and I use this for the smallmouth and the largemouth at Lake Powell as well, is a chartreuse gurgler. Really simple fly to tie if you look up gurglers. Super easy, great effective topwater fly. They actually work really well for like cutthroat and stuff like that too. And they have kind of a cool action, and they'll splash the surface just a little bit, but not as much as like a full-blown popper. So it's a little bit more subtle. So anytime you're fishing topwater, the gurgler is usually my go-to first before I look at anything else. So chartreuse gurgler. And the way I approach it is I will, when I see a boil, I'm going to go to the side of the boil, and I kind of want to, it's not really cutting off the fish, because when these stripers are chasing and attacking these shad, they kind of follow them. And then, they usually kind of go in a line, but these shad will change directions once in a while. And a lot of times they'll change directions because they sense your motor, they sense movement, your line landing on the water. Sometimes they'll dive, and if that happens, the boil disappears. But so we'll get to the side of them and try to cruise to get in front of them a little bit. And the reason that I try to do that, well, there's a couple reasons. One is, just like really fishing for carp or fishing for really any species of predator fish, prey doesn't go after the predator. So if you cast out across these boils and you strip back through them in the opposite direction that the boil is moving, it's an unnatural presentation to the stripers. Now, stripers are pretty aggressive, so you'll still probably get the occasional striper. But if you can, but you also will probably scare the bait fish. So if you can get in front of them and cast so that you're more across and kind of away from the boil, don't try to land it right in the boil. Landing it to the side, just out in front, and then stripping is the way I try to approach it. And sometimes if you do it right, you coast in, you get your fly out there, and you strip it in. You can catch a couple fish out of a boil. Now the real big boils, when they go crazy, like the evening with my boy, it didn't freaking matter. You just cast. There was fish everywhere. I was picking out side fish. They were cruising, not even in the boils, because there were still fish around, kind of chasing these shad that were separated from the group. And I would try to pick out one fish, just to increase the challenge, because I could have caught 1,000. I'm not even really exaggerating. I probably could have caught 1,000 fish that night if I'd wanted to. Crazy. It's not always like that, but. So you cruise up on these, get a little bit in front of them, cast back to them, and then, pop it back or strip it back. Now, you can use, clouser minnows, you can use deceivers, you can do all that kind of stuff too. They all work. Stripers are not particularly picky. I like, again, top water. If I'm going to go after stripers, I like to watch them hit. It's a lot of fun. Plus, it's kind of fun even when they miss, which you'll see in some of this video, where they give it a swipe, but they don't get it. Anyway, so I got sidetracked on that. I use the gurgler. I use the 7 weight. I go a little bit longer leader. It's not like a streamer where you can get away with 4 or 5 feet. With the top water, you do want to get your fly line, and the fly line will scare the fish. You don't want your fly line landing on those shad. It will scare the shad. It's not going to really scare the bass, but like I said, the bait fish do tend to be wary. So I use 9 feet. I might go a little bit longer than that, but it starts to become pretty difficult to cast, a big foam fly, with a long leader. So it's usually 8 or 9 feet is what I go with. And floating line. You can go to sink tip and stuff like that, I guess, if you really wanted to, but realistically, where you're fishing these fish on the surface, you're going to be better off with floating line. 8 or 9 feet a leader, some kind of popper. Again, chartreuse gurgler is my go-to. It's killer. It works real well for all the bass species that we find down at Lake Powell. And honestly, in other areas of Utah too, that's still my go-to. I catch a lot of smallmouth and some, on the Bear River, some various areas around northern Utah as well. Chartreuse gurgler works really well for any time that they're looking at the surface at all. But yeah, that's kind of it. Get out in front of them, cast back, strip it back in, and yeah, it's a ton of fun. So if you've never been to Lake Powell, you're from Utah, kind of shame on you. Go down and experience it. It is in a drought right now, so there is, not as much to explore, and that's kind of sad. There used to be that you could go into these different canyons on Lake Powell and drive for miles down these canyons in your boats. Right now, because of the level of the lake, most of those canyons don't go back that far. Having said that, it's still a huge lake, even as is. When it's at its peak, it's actually got more shoreline than the entire Pacific coast of the United States. Right now, it's not that big, but it's still a huge lake, beautiful to explore. If you've never been down there, I highly recommend going down and take your fly rod, chase some stripers. Just a lot of fun. So anyway, if you've never done it, I hope this maybe encourages you to go give it a shot. I'm going to go ahead and shut up. There's not a whole lot left of the footage, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll keep trying to provide cool content, add some various species. I still love carp. They're still, other than fishing big trout on dries, love fishing bonefish. Carp is right there for me. I just absolutely love, those are kind of my top three. But it's cool to throw some other species in there and go chase them as well. So anyway, I'm out. Again, like and subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I will see you guys next time.